We're going to keep things moving here with our next guests. The founder and managing director of Blueberry Ventures, Mr. Arif Faisal. Hello, sir.
Hi, Marty. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Well, we'll do this. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. How
Perfect.
about me?
Yeah, you're coming in
Sure.
great. Cool. Well, we just finished up our conversation with Hannah from Kombucha Brewers International. Kind of maybe a good place to maybe start with you guys because the recent investment with Flying Embers.
Sure.
What is the kind of opportunity that you guys saw there? There's, hard kombucha is a developing category. What about this brand and this opportunity made sense for you guys to get involved?
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Well, first, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be up here with BevNet. I remember 3 years ago being on the main stage, being interviewed by Jeff, and how time has flown. So thank you for having me. Flying Embers is our most recent investment, actually, and backing Bill Moses, who's a serial entrepreneur and a high-integrity stand-up guy. So we were really turned on to have a broader thesis in next-generation alcohol, which might be a better topic for Brewbound, perhaps, than BevNet. But Embers fit squarely in that. So it was really more of a bet on the evolution of the alcohol drinker and the stepwise change that the alcohol drinker, she and he, is making as it relates to the slightly better for youing of the space and really the move away from traditional beer, wine, and even spirits to some degree. And so the bet with Bill and Flying Embers is, obviously the first product to market is the hard kombucha, which is highly sessionable, 4.5% first line. Launching the second line, which is a higher alcohol, 7.5%, which is where you're seeing some of the others. Bill's is the first, Flying Embers is the first nationally distributed. Really had tremendous receptivity from national distributors who saw an opportunity here. And with Flying Embers, it's really about a platform. So often that term is overused, I feel like. And so I'm almost hesitant to use it. But in Bill's case, it's really about that next generation alcohol platform, building out a 100,000 square foot facility where he is in Ojai and Ventura, California, and there'll be a lot more from the brand to come, not only in hard kombucha, but also outside and in other categories where Bill can ferment and brew and create great winnable products for the next generation of alcohol consumer.
So this would be sort of a fermented beverage platform that could go in different ways.
Exactly. So I don't think it's publicly announced, but there'll be the next line coming out in 2020 . So we're super excited.
You just publicly announced it right here. So.
Well, I didn't announce what it was.
Yeah, exactly. Just kidding. It's really.
I think Bill's talking about it.
With the really interesting thing is with hard kombucha. I mean, how much is it make sense to sort of emphasize the better for you, sort of the health benefits and properties of it, versus being a more refreshment, enjoyment type of play?
Yeah. So look, I think that consumers aren't quite ready necessarily for taking alcohol as a means of getting their functional ingredients, right? Whereas in non-alc there is that need for more, right, than just satiation or hydration, right? So there is this consumer that has a bit of a heuristic now around functional, whereas in the alcohol world, and we have some experience with it, this is not our first investment in a functional alcohol business, so the consumer is moving towards that direction, and so the question is what do you want to give them in addition to the buzz, right? So it's like, they know what 4.5% alcohol is, for example. They know what that does to them. They know that mood state that can affect. But can you also add into that these other functional benefits that almost makes it why not? Yep. And so I think there's a long road ahead for us for the consumer to get more than just their 4.5% alcohol, right? And a great tasting beverage, but also these better for you ingredients.
Now, when you're approaching a emerging category that is sort of still establishing yourself, obviously timing is important. You guys want to get in at the right time. Just how do you sort of know when that is and just sort of when to get involved basically in a category that is maybe just still emerging, thinking hard kombucha, CBD, other sort of things that we're sort of seeing on the rise but maybe not completely matured yet?
Yeah, totally. So we tend to be a little bit conservative when it comes to new categories. And so I like to say that, I'll get into something when there's a there in the category, and so then the question is, what the heck does there mean, right? And so we like to see, at a category level that there's enough retail traction, there's enough data that's suggestive of the fact that there's going to be more and more retail traction. So, frankly, in hard kombucha, it's still pretty early, and I think we're all sort of seeing the data in the broad kombucha market, which isn't as rosy as perhaps it was a year ago. So, frankly, when we underwrote Flying Embers, it wasn't necessarily an underwriting of the hard kombucha category, because it's still pretty early. It was an underwriting of this thesis around next generation alcohol.
So, you guys maybe have a more conservative philosophy, as you said. I mean, what sort of what are the guideposts, and what are the sort of main things you guys are looking at, and when you're evaluating opportunities?
Yeah, just at the company level. So we like to see a number of qualitative metrics, such as velocity story that's replicable, a manufacturing footprint that's scalable, the foundation of a team in place that we can build upon, evangelical consumer base that's developing a community, and a handful of other attributes that we like to really deep dive into. But usually that means that quantitatively the company's got a few million in revenue, because you can't get the aforementioned data without having market presence. So we really want to see proof of concept when we get involved. That tends to mean a few $1 million in sales, as I mentioned. We sort of look when we're evaluating and diving deep. I kind of use the 5 Ps analogy. People, who are the people, who are the team? Plan, what's the objective? Product, of course, what's the product? We want to make sure that we get liquid to lips and it tastes great. Positioning, right? Brand needs to be about authenticity. It needs to be transparent. People, plan, product, position, and projection. So, what does the market look like? How big is there in the market? So that's why when it's an early category, it's still a little bit unclear. So when I look at something like kombucha now, right? There's a there in that non-alcoholic kombucha category. If you look at, on the flip side, if you look at beer, right? It's that's a 9-figure category, et cetera. So if not more.
Absolutely. Well, one of the biggest questions that I think we get from the brands and entrepreneurs that we talk to is, how do they talk to venture capital groups? How do they sort of approach you guys in a way that's effective, and how do they sort of start that conversation and get their foot in the door? Sure.
Yeah. No. It's we like to be reached out to. So it's whether it's a cold email or a warm introduction. I try to do my best to respond to everybody and to take opportunities to get to know folks. And oftentimes we'll meet companies well in advance of when we want to stroke a check in terms of size and stage-wise. But it's part of what we do. And building a relationship to me is about mutual relationship. So it's not just investor getting to know company, but it's company getting to know investor. And I like to build that early. So with one of our more recent investments the last couple of years, a company called Vive Organics. Wyatt and I had known each other 2.5 years before we stroked a check, and I'd been informally helping him and been a sounding board when he'd pick up the phone and call, and always there to listen and help if I could. So it was that kind of cultivating of a relationship where when it's time to write the check from my lens, and for someone like Wyatt's lens to take the check from Marif, there's a relationship there. We understand each other. There's integrity. There's trust. And it makes things a lot easier when you get into the business from both sides and start working together and rolling up your sleeves and go through the good, bads, and uglies, because there will be all of the above. And you want to be working with people that you really know and you really trust.
Absolutely. I think when you trust someone, giving them that check means a whole lot more than just giving some money. It really is a part of the relationship there. Real quick, we're about to finish up, but any sort of thoughts about this upcoming year? We're at the beginning of a new decade. I'm sure things are going to change a lot between the next BevNet Live, but any particular categories or trends that you guys are watching in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening in CBD is really interesting, right? It's there's still a ton of consumer education that is going to need to happen there. There's a lot of traction. There's a lot of crowded, markets now. It's like there's a lot of beverage companies. So, I think what happens with cannabis broadly, so the consumer understands what cannabis is, but they have this heuristic that cannabis is a psychoactive. So they're clearly understanding what THC is. So how do we delineate that from CBD at scale, right? There's a lot of these great brands that are coming out with beautiful packaging and great liquid on the beverage side. And how will the scale opportunities look for the brands that are CBD platforms? And then there's the functional brands that are out there with functional beverages that more than likely will have, if they haven't already, started playing around with the formulations, right? Because having a SKU with CBD in it
right,
probably will make sense. So that's one space we're looking at very closely.
Well, it's exciting. I'm sure we'll be checking in over the course of the next year, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Eric, it was so great hanging out with you.
Thank you so much, Marty.
If you like this video, don't forget to hit subscribe. Ding the bell and you'll know when the next one drops.